Mr. Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, I'd like to ask you to discuss and provide some guidance for me and others on how to approach the issue of cost sharing for our obligations and the benefits that we provide in the Pacific. The easy way for me to look at it when it comes to Europe is through the 27 other NATO members who have a target of spending at least 2% of GDP on defense, even though only 4 of them today are doing that. But it's something that I can ask of our allies who enjoy the benefit of the U.S.'s disproportionate presence there and defense capacity. How should I look at that when it comes to Asia and the Pacific?
A great question, sir. And I think that the NATO model, as I mentioned before, doesn't work for the Pacific. So you have to look at each of our treaty allies individually and look at that subset of treaty allies where we have major concentrations of U.S. forces. And who's the greater beneficiary of that, or who are the beneficiaries of that? Certainly part of the beneficiary of us having a large carrier strike group, Marine Expeditionary Force presence in Japan is us. You know, we're there for us and the values that we hold dear and what's important to the United States. Certainly it's a benefit to Japan. And so our obligation to Japan under our treaty is to defend them, and their obligation to us under that same treaty is to provide us a place from which we can defend them. So that's simplistic, but that sort of gets at that issue. And so they provide us an enormous host nation funding level, which I promised I would get to you in the closed session, to foot the bill, if you will, for U.S. forces that are based in Japan. And that model extends to Australia, for example. We're undergoing host nation funding discussions with Australia now as we move a sizable Marine and Air Force presence to Darwin and Tyndall. And the level of that funding and how much it should be is the subject of negotiation. We certainly get a benefit from operating out of Australia, as do the Australians. Singapore is another case, a very important case. Singapore is not a treaty ally, but it's certainly an important strategic partner of us. And they allow us to put our littoral combat ships, to rotationally deploy them out of their nation. And they've agreed to allow us to operate rotationally P-3s and P-8 surveillance and reconnaissance aircraft. And we get that benefit from operating out of Singapore because of our interest in the South China Sea, the Strait of Malacca, and the Eastern Indian Ocean.
Yeah. All of that makes sense, and I think that same logic could extend to our presence in Europe. And yet there we have a very defined commitment from our allies there. As you outline some of the challenges that we face, a rising China, a resurgent Russia, just to name 2, and some of the investments that you're going to ask, or the Department of Defense and the administration will ask the taxpayer to make, all of which I think are sound. I think it's also an appropriate time to think about what our allies and other beneficiaries in the Asia-Pacific region should expect to contribute. And we, the taxpayer, the representatives, should have a clear understanding of that. And I don't know if General Scaparrotti, if you want to talk about Korea as an example with the THAAD batteries and Patriot missile battery deployments there, use that as an example. What part of that cost is shared by Korea? I understand the benefit to us of having our service members and those defenses there. What does Korea share in that?
I would just say that this is a unique alliance with the U.S. ROC alliance that started and has grown since the Korean War. And in this case, we've got a treaty partner and a partner that that spends 2.5% over, pretty routinely each year in their defense, and they spend portions of their defense money to meet commitments that we've agreed upon mutually that they need to develop in order to strengthen the alliance. And in the closed session, we can talk specifically about that. Secondly, through negotiations, they also, called a Special Measures Agreement, they annually pay a certain percentage of the cost of U.S. forces to be stationed in Korea and assist in their defense. So I think it's a good construct. They're great partners in this respect, and they've been true to, and they have the same funding challenges that we have, but they've been true to meeting their commitments in that respect.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.